Greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing climate change, abrupt climate change, the path or the possibility of compassionate degrowth, or at least meeting our demise with grace and on some level. Sorry I missed you all yesterday. Just overwhelmed with stuff. Long day at work, et cetera, et cetera. And as my attire might tip you off, there's some weather here. There's been some weather here. I just haven't really been talking about it, but we had, some really good rain one day last week, and then all weekend long, and it looks like it's continuing tomorrow. But absolute deluge type rain. Quickly, I'll just talk from this article. Deadly storm slams California with flooding rainfall, damaging winds. Strongest Pacific storm of this winter season slammed California with heavy rain, significant snowfall, high winds, and travel disruptions. This past weekend, a member of the Ventura County search and rescue team was killed, and 9 other people were injured in a car crash on Saturday. Saturday morning, amid heavy rain near Pyramid Lake. The team was at the scene of another vehicle crash on Interstate 5 when a minivan lost control on the wet roadway and plowed into members of the team. Good Lord. This is a very unfortunate situation that could have been avoided. Yeah, if you could probably sum up climate change that way too. Could have been avoided if people weren't so goddamn stupid. Which, sorry to sound cynical, but today is one of those days when I'm just feeling like, the human race might be better. Just ending it all. But, I hold out hope that people with brains might survive and might make a better world. How's that for hopium? You like that? Like that little rainbow in the sky dreamscape I painted there? Yeah. I mean, I've been driving around in it. It's just ridiculous. Just people. That's all I'm going to read of that article. I'm going to link it below. But yeah, it's been some severe weather here. Lots and lots of rain, tons of rain, which is fine. It's reviving a lot of the trees that were almost dead and gone this last summer. So that's a good thing. But yeah, people are just making a mess of themselves and the commute and the drive everywhere because, they just don't understand physics. Most people don't understand physics. Most people don't understand that, when conditions change, you must change too. Nope, I'm just going to continue acting or driving or doing whatever it is I do the way I want to do it all the time because, I learned that was okay when I was 6, and I just continued living that way until I'm an adult. Making myself laugh, telling myself jokes, but I'm my own best audience. So there you go. Moving on to an article. Well, let me cover this real quick. Interesting news. Billionaire Elon Musk releases all Tesla patents to help save the earth. Okay. I mean, there's lots of ways to look at this, like oh joy. But we'll get into this a little bit. Elon Musk announced Thursday he had released all of the electric car maker Tesla's patents as part of an effort to fight climate change. In a blog post, the colorful billionaire founder of Tesla promised the company will not initiate patent lawsuits against anyone who, in good faith, wants to use our technology. This is going to do wonders for Tesla stock, I'm sure, as in not at all. But good on Elon Musk for doing something, authentic and, a billionaire acting on the, in good faith for humanity's sake and not for profit's sake. You don't hear or heed. You don't hear or read or heed about that most days, do you? It was a remarkable move in an industry where the smallest idea or seed of invention is carefully guarded to protect its monetary value. And it, in fact, came on the same day U.S. prosecutors charged a Chinese national with stealing secrets from Apple's self-driving vehicle project. Tesla Motors was created to accelerate the advent of sustainable transport, Musk said. If we clear a path to the creation of compelling electric vehicles, but then lay intellectual property landmines behind us to inhibit others, we are acting in a manner contrary to that goal. In fact, Musk said he was now skeptical of patents which too often only serve to stifle progress and helped enrich giant corporations and lawyers rather than investors. This is rather amazing. He said he had earlier felt compelled to file patents for Tesla to prevent big car companies from copying the technology and using the huge marketing and sales apparatus to take over the market. We couldn't have been more wrong. The unfortunate reality is the opposite, he said, noting that electric or clean fuel cars at the major manufacturers are small to non-existent. But with car production continuing at 100 million a year, it is impossible for Tesla to build electric cars fast enough to address the carbon crisis, Musk said. Have other companies making electric cars and the world would benefit from rapid advances in technology. We believe that applying the open source philosophy to our patents will strengthen rather than diminish Tesla's position and ability to attract talented engineers. Shares of Tesla declined again Thursday after dropping Wednesday following mixed results for 2018. Of course they did. But who cares about shares? Like the way I rhyme? I mean, this is pretty great. This is exactly, if I don't know what can be said about releasing technology to create more technology in the fight against climate change, but this is kind of the attitude or intention that is necessary to make drastic changes, right? We need big forward thinkers who are not like all about profit motive, who are going to help the world out and not care about profits and not care about making another $1 billion or whatever. It would be great if we could get away from the idea of having to build 100 million other cars. That's absolutely something that we shouldn't be doing, electric or not. There shouldn't be 100 million more cars built, because think of the destruction that would entail. We don't need that kind of destruction. We don't need 100 million more people having cars on this planet. We just don't need it. We need to find a way to take all the other cars off the planet, the regular gas combustion kind, very, very quickly. And the way that would happen would be, a major political shift, as in, nationalizing industries and just saying, no, you can't have this. Sorry, it's going to kill your children. So sorry, you can't have it. That's the kind of talk that needs to happen very quickly. Moving on to an article from The Guardian from today or yesterday. David Wallace Wells, who was the writer of The Uninhabitable Earth. David Wallace Wells on climate. People should be scared. I'm scared. The journalist and author has claimed climate change will soon render the world uninhabitable, leading his supporters to say he's telling the terrifying truth and critics to brand him a reckless alarmist. Why is he so worried? Let's read on. David Wallace Wells' apocalyptic depiction of a world made uninhabitable by climate chaos caused an outcry when it was published in New York Magazine in 2017, based on the worst case scenarios foreseen by science, his article portrayed a world of drought, plague, and famine in which acidified oceans drown, coastal homelands, dormant diseases are released from ancient ice, conflicts surge, economies collapse, human cognitive abilities decline, and heat stress becomes more intolerable in New York City than in present-day Bahrain. Critics call this irresponsibly alarmist. How dare you? Supporters said it was a long overdue antidote to climate complacency. Please do. Whatever your view, was among the best read climate articles in U.S. history. Now he is back with a book-length follow-up. Jonathan Watts, this is an interview. You have written a hell of a book. Your now famous opening lines, "It's worse, much worse than you think," are like a voice from a nightmare. Are you deliberately upsetting people about the climate? David Wallace Wells. That is one of the intentions. My hope is, first of all, to tell the story as I see it. That has a couple of components. One is to show the crisis is happening much faster and is more all-encompassing than people think, and then also to think how those dramatic changes are going to cascade through the lives we live, the way we relate to one another, our politics, our culture, our psychology, all that stuff. I would like people to be scared of what is possible because I'm scared, and because I am motivated by fear, I also hope they will be motivated. Sense of speed, this is the interviewer, comes across very strongly. It's as if people have got used to seeing the climate crisis as an old horror film with slow lurching zombies, but in your version, the zombies are much faster, scarier ones that you see in modern horror films. You address the risks of heat, death, hunger, drowning, wildfire, dying oceans, economic collapse, and conflict, and suggest the climate problem driving them has super accelerated beyond what many people think. That is the thing that first opened my eyes. This is DDW, or DWW, excuse me. When I learned the astonishing fact that more than half of the carbon we have emitted in the atmosphere from burning fossil fuels was emitted in the past 25 years, that really shocked me. This means we have burned more fossil fuels since the UN established the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, than in all of the centuries before. So we have done more damage knowingly than we ever managed in ignorance. This is a horrifying fact. It also means that we are engineering our own devastation practically in real time. How much will depend on how we act, how we behave, and how we respond. Question, the book is based on the piece you wrote for the New York Magazine last year that focused on worst case climate scenarios. Were you prepared for the storm that caused? Answer, it had about 6 million page views. Within a couple of days, it was the most read article we had ever published. It was a true phenomenon. This is why I think more people, obviously lots of people know the problem we're up against. That was thrilling in a way because of conventional wisdom about climate writing, at least in American journalism, was that it was traffic kryptonite or a ratings killer, that nobody would read these stories. I felt that it was in part because we had left a lot of storytelling tools on the table and weren't embracing a certain kind of writing that might reach people dramatically. I felt the article was a proof of concept for that. In the book, question, you focus more on the warming of around 2 to 4 C, which is more likely than the worst case scenarios, though still bad enough. Was this different approach an attempt to tighten up because there was quite a lot of scientific pushback on some of the claims you made in the original article? I had anticipated a pushback. I wrote the original article about scientific reticence and the way many researchers were reluctant to talk about their own scary findings in public in the terms they might have included in their papers. But I do not feel the science of my story was irresponsible. We ended up publishing 4 corrections on the piece. What it motivated me to do, and not just me, but my fact checker and editor, was to publish this fully annotated version of the piece within a couple of days, in which we footnoted every fact with a paper. I do believe that basically answered the first reflexive criticism of the piece as being scientifically irresponsible. There were also questions about rhetoric. Scientists said your article was hyperbolic and exaggerated, and your alarmism was as irresponsible as climate denial. In the book, you are unapologetic. You write the facts are hysterical, and the only way to address them is with the language of theology and mythology. Is this Armageddonizing a way to reach new audiences and break down barriers? Yes, and to activate people who are only casually engaged. To me, that is the most important messaging mission. It is important to mobilize people who at the moment are concerned but basically complacent, and turn them into people who are much more activated and essentially voting about climate change. Voting about climate as a first order political priority rather than a third or fourth order priority, judging politicians on the basis of their climate policy. Don't know if I'm going to read this whole thing. Hold on, let me get back. Disruption is important, but to what extent? You talk of last year's UN IPCC 1.5C report. It is a science paper and it is sober. It spells out the huge and horrifying differences between 1.5C and 2C warming and the actions we need to take right now if we are to avoid the extra half a degree, which will require a 45% reduction in emissions by 2030. You say the message of the report is, it's okay now to freak out. But I guess most scientists would say, don't freak out, act, focus, do not succumb to paralyzing fear. Is freak out what you really mean? The short answer is yes. We should not sit back and feel complacent that the world beyond us will figure this out without political pressure. We cannot continue on the path we are on and believe our future will be secure and stable. We need to dramatically change our climate policy globally. That was the very clear message of the UN report. You are right that in a certain way it was written soberly, but it is also the case that it was saying we need mobilization on the scale that we saw in the Second World War in Europe and the US, and that is not a keep calm message. It is saying we have to light the fuse and get going. I think that's all I'm going to read of that. I'm going to link this article below. And I believe I'm going to finish up with I'm going to link a video, but I believe, hold on one second. I'm going to finish up this video with an article from National Geographic. Here's a little bit of alarmism. 2019 may be the hottest year yet. Here's why. Spurred by a likely El Nino as well as climate change, the planet is expected to heat up even more, scientists warn. This is from December 6th, 2018. An El Nino event is very likely underway, amping up extreme weather already made worse by climate change and increasing the odds that 2019 will be the hottest year in recorded human history. Scientists warn there is an 80% chance a full-fledged El Nino has already begun and will last until at least the end of February 2019. According to the Climate Prediction Center at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the impacts of El Nino have been more severe in recent years because of global warming, and these impacts will be worse as temperatures continue to rise, according to a recent study in the journal Geophysical Research Letters. With an El Nino, it is entirely possible 2019 will be the hottest year ever, said co-author Samantha Stevenson, a climate scientist at the University of California, Santa Barbara. The top 4 hottest years have been among the last 4, 2015 through 2018, driven by increased emissions of heat-trapping carbon dioxide, which have also reached record levels. According to the World Meteorological Organization, the Earth's climate has been warmer than the 20th century average over the last 406 consecutive months. That means no one under the age of 32 has ever experienced a cooler than average month. And every fraction of a degree of warming makes a difference to human health and access to food and fresh water, to the extinction of animals and plants, to the survival of coral reefs and marine life, said WMO Deputy Secretary General Elena Meninkova. The dangers of heat. A warmer world means more and greater extremes and destructive and dangerous weather, such as heat waves, wildfires, droughts, flooding, and violent storms. There were 70 tropical cyclones or hurricanes in the northern hemisphere in 2018, compared with the long-term average of 53. Powerful and often record-breaking storms brought devastation to the Mariana Islands, Philippines, Vietnam, Korea, and Tonga. In the U.S., hurricanes Florence and Michael caused huge economic damage and considerable loss of life, the WMO noted in its annual climate statement. Heat waves resulted in an astounding loss in productivity in 2018 because it was often either too hot to work or even go outside safely. An incredible 153 billion hours of labor were wiped out last year due to heat waves, nearly 3 times more than 2000. According to the 2018 report of the Lancet Countdown on Health and Climate Change released November 28th, the most recent El Nino event ended in 2016, and it was associated with catastrophic coral bleaching on the Great Barrier Reef, severe droughts in Africa, South America, and parts of the Pacific and Southeast Asia, and wildfires in Indonesia and Canada. While the current El Nino is not expected to be as severe, it could still bring dangerous weather to vulnerable areas around the world, scientists warn. El Nino and its opposite, La Nina, form a natural cycle that can last from a few months to 2 or 3 years. When they occur, weather patterns around the world can be affected, producing a range of impacts on crop yields, famine, heating, cooling demands of homes, buildings, fire risks, coral bleaching, and extreme weather. The combination of human-caused warming and natural upswing in temperatures increases the odds that any new El Nino year will be the warmest ever, said climate scientist Michael Mann from Pennsylvania State University. Normally, El Nino events bring heavy rains to California. And if that happens this winter, it could lead to flash flooding and mudslides after wildfires burned 1.6 million acres this fall. That already happened. Nearly 14,000 homes were destroyed in those fires, and now the first storms of the season have already produced flooding, mudslides. While the El Nino brings rain and cooler weather to the southern U.S., it brings heat and drought to Australia. That already happened, as well as dry winter conditions in southeastern Africa and northern Brazil. Catastrophic wildfires have already broken out in eastern Australia, along with a heat wave with temperatures over 111 degrees Fahrenheit at the end of November. Global warming will increase the variability of the Eastern Pacific El Nino, reports a paper in this week's Nature. This increase could result in more frequent extreme weather events in the future. Okay. Excuse me. Pardon me for all the hacking. That doesn't bode well. Considering the last 4 years were the hottest years on record, the likelihood that 2019 will be in the top 5 is extremely likely. If it is the actual hottest year, who knows? But the trend is the trend. The trend is the curve. The trend is up we go. Carbon emissions, up we go. Temperature, up we go. Have already had insane amount of heat in Australia, causing serious wildlife loss. We've had, record lows and record highs all over the globe, and we're in the second month of the year already. So 2019, hold on to your seats. I think I said that quite a few times last year. Could be a wild ride, probably not the wildest we will see, but we'll see what transpires. Hopefully we have another year of normalcy. That's all I'm hoping for, because I got the year planned out pretty much in my head already. Like, this is the stuff I want to do. So, barring any major climate calamities, I'm hoping to do those things and enjoy accomplishing those things this year in 2019. We'll see. Make your plans. Don't tie your expectations to them. It's my only suggestion. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.